friends, it's Rachel at Reflective Redesign, and in this video we are taking on this Ashley Home Store Mission Style dresser. This dresser is going to get a fresh update, but not before we had to pivot first. Stay tuned. I bought this dresser off Facebook Marketplace mainly because it came as a set to some nightstands I wanted to refinish for our bedroom. Overall, this piece was in great shape. It just had some peeling finish on the top of the oak veneer. I started by removing the hardware and numbering the drawers as I went so I knew which drawer goes back to which space. I also had a great helper, as you can see. She collected all the hardware for me. The drawer stoppers made some of them pretty difficult to get out, but through careful brute force, made it happen. Next came removing the pieces of wood on the front of the frame, which were supposed to mimic exposed joinery, signature of the Mission style. While this is not the dirtiest piece I've come across, that dust buildup was pretty intense and it needed a good cleaning. I used my shop vac to clean this out, and there is something about cleaning furniture that makes me want to wear a respirator mask and gloves. I used Crud Cutter Cleaner to clean this up, but any good cleaner with a degreaser will work well. I cleaned both outside and inside the frame to get all the dust that was left. I wiped it down one more time with good old water to get any traces of cleaner off of the piece before I started the next step. Now it is so much cleaner and we're ready to move on past the cleaning stage. I started scraping with my carbide scraper and then switched to sanding to remove the flaking finish from the top surface. I then scuff sanded all over with 120 grit sandpaper to remove the shiny, smooth surface so the primer had something to grip to. I used Bondo all-purpose putty to fill the hardware holes as well as the areas where the faux joinery had been removed. Once the Bondo had hardened, I sanded it smooth and wiped it all down. I need to start keeping count of how many times I wipe a piece of furniture down. It's a lot. I followed that up with Bondo glazing and spot putty to fill in any small pinhole that might have been missed. Then once again, I sanded and wiped it all down. The whole piece got one more wipe down, but this time with mineral spirits to get any last sanding dust residue, and it also evaporates very quickly, which is nice. I rolled on 2 coats of primer, sanding and wiping down with a clean microfiber rag between coats. I'll link the primer and the products I'm using down below. I let the primer dry overnight and was ready for paint the next day. My plan for this piece was to paint it to look like wood, following Black Sheep House's Pottery Barn finish tutorial. I can link that video below. But it involves painting the base tan, followed by a glaze that you brush to mimic wood grain. A whisk broom can be brushed across it to mimic wood grain. So I know the question is, why paint it to look like wood when it already was wood? Well, the wood veneer was oak and it was really dark grain lines and really widespread, and I wanted more of a subtle wood grain pattern. I've done this technique with a few other pieces and really liked how it turned out. Sadly for this piece though, I really didn't like how it was looking, so I pivoted and decided to scuff sand the texture off and get it smooth for a new coat of paint. Once smooth, I pulled out my sprayer and went to work spraying one more coat of primer to form a base, followed by 3 coats of paint and 3 coats of a satin water-based polyurethane, sanding and wiping it down between coats. I used a multi-tool to trim the Bondo that was sticking through the inside of the hardware holes I filled, and I added a stainable wood filler to the inside of the hardware holes so they would look nice and be flush with the rest of the wood and not have that blue Bondo sticking out or a gaping hole.
Next, I used a paintbrush and painted the edges of the drawers that didn't get painted with the sprayer, but I forgot to video that step.
New hardware holes were drilled and gold knobs replaced the previous chunky black hardware. Even though I had to pivot with this dresser, I loved the overall high-end look that it had when it was finished. It was very different from the country style it had originally.
I listed this dresser on Facebook Marketplace for $650 and it was sold and picked up within 48 hours.
I hope you enjoyed the process behind this flip, and I hope you'll follow along as I have many more flips to share. I also share lots more on my Instagram, and I will link it below.
Thank you so much for being the guinea pig to my very first YouTube video. I hope you enjoyed.